Yeah, Steve.
Hey, everybody. Hey, sorry, the passwords are getting longer and harder to remember.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for joining us, and thanks to Bill and Debbie for setting this up, and thanks Rick for coming. Um, so this is something that we decided we wanted to do. We're using some of the funds that we get from the health system that for academic support. And what that means is that these are funds that we use to help to recruit faculty, department chairs, pay for startups. But what we decided, it would be really useful if we invested some of this money in our own people that are here. And as we try to really focus on some of the thematic areas that are part of the Precision Health Initiative, we thought one of the best ways of helping to engage some of our own faculty in research would be to create a pilot program like this that would provide enough money that it could be meaningful to help to develop pilot data, for example, but would be rigorous enough that it would really encourage each of us to do the sort of work that we would for any other proposal. And then with the idea that we could give people a leg up in this process. And so Bill has, I think, I can tell you, probably 20 iterations of the RFP, put together something that I think is very understandable, describes what it is that we aspire to, in I think a very formal way, lays out what the expectations of the applicants are, and how the money can be spent. And so we've never done anything at this level before. All of the internal funds available through the campus and have only been able to be used for, have never been able to be used for faculty support. So this is something that we thought we wanted to make sure that we built in, because we know that if people are going to do something new and different, they need to have some support for the effort that's required to do the work. So that's how we got to this point. We want to make sure to be available to answer your questions. You can tell there's sort of a two-step process, first to a letter of intent and then a formal application, and that's to make sure that people are kind of on the right track before we have them commit a tremendous amount of time to putting together a formal proposal. And I'm going to now leave it to, so we're really excited about this. We won a lot of proposals. We think that we could fund up to 30 of them if we get really good proposals. And I'll leave it up to Bill now to walk you through the RFP or to respond to any questions that you might have. So thank you.
Steve, this is huge. I mean, the fact that this is Steve and Bill's idea and they ran it by me, and I can't tell you how supportive I am of this. This is a big initiative to get research off the ground and research with the precision health angle. So thank you both.
Oh, great. Thank you, Rick. And we recognize if the Precision Health Institute is successful, that it's going to be a lot of people on this call that are going to help it to be, and we want to make our contribution as a School of Medicine to this campus-wide and really system-wide effort to advance research in precision medicine.
Well, thank you very much, Steve, for those introductory comments, and thank you, Rick, for your comments. I'm going to take the liberty, please, of just sharing my screen and making a brief presentation, keeping it short, and then just a little bit more details about the program, and then we'd like to leave time just for question and answer. And so allow me to share my screen, please. Hopefully people can see that. And, translational research, you can come up with many different definitions of what is translational research. I actually like this definition by McArtland Rubio, which was published 10 years ago in Academic Medicine. Translational research can be defined as a broad spectrum of scientific investigation that fosters the multidirectional and multidisciplinary integration of basic research, patient-oriented research, and population-based research with a long-term aim of improving the health of the public. And as you can see from this diagram, which was modified by another publication by Blumberg and colleagues about 8 years ago, that there is a spectrum from basic science research at the far left of the screen, moving then into human studies, translating to patients, and then into practice, and eventually into the community, and becoming policy that effectively transitions research into the community to improve public health. So one of the things I want to emphasize about this request for proposal is we're looking for a broad spectrum of projects, and we have roughly, 20 departments in our School of Medicine, and we're highly confident that all of our departments will have interest in this proposal, including our basic science departments and our clinically oriented departments. Precision health or precision medicine. I'm big on definitions. That's why I like to just show a few, please. From Elliot Antman and Joe Lascalzo defined precision medicine a few years back as an evolving strategy for disease prevention and tailored treatment that incorporates individual, genetic, environmental, and experiential variability. And that's shown in that diagram towards the right. And I do want to take the liberty of just reading this quote, which was delivered by President Obama in his State of the Union address in January of 2015, where doctors have always recognized that every patient is unique, and doctors have always tried to tailor their treatments as best they can to individuals. You can match a blood transfusion to a blood type. That was an important discovery. What if matching a cancer cure to our genetic code was just as easy, just as standard? What if figuring out the right dose of a medicine was just as simple as taking our temperature? So truly visionary and exciting comments back in 2015. And these two elements of translational research and precision health are extremely important on our campus and to our School of Medicine. And I think very few things probably embody that currently as much as our NextGen Precision Health Institute and initiative. This picture you see here is already out of date, but you see the cranes there and you see its relationship to University Hospital. And this text is just from the website for the NextGen Precision Health Initiative, that it unites the University of Missouri systems for public research universities, the University of Missouri Healthcare, and private partners towards a single goal: personalized treatments for society's toughest diseases. And Dr. Barron, in addition to being our Executive Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs, was appointed by President Choi as to become the Executive Scientific Director of the NextGen Institute and Initiative. And as people well know, he's very heavily involved in that process currently. So that leads us to TRIUMPH, translational research informing useful and meaningful precision health. I'm talking about it right now, but Dr. Steve Zweig, this was his idea to come up with this program. Heck, he even made the acronym. And certainly want to give him kudos and gratitude for making this program possible, and also just the sources of funding our health system, and just the hard work, including the people listening to this presentation whose work really made this possible, because that's where the money comes from, the hard work of people here in our health system.
Well, why?
So the goals of TRIUMPH are to advance translational research in precision health on our campus and beyond to our system universities or other collaborating institutions. We certainly really want to promote collaborations as a result of this program. And of course, like any investment, we hope to have return on investment in terms of follow-on funding proposals that come from the work funded by TRIUMPH. As Steve mentioned, this is teams will get up to $200,000 over a period of 2 years, so roughly $50K a year if that's how they divide the budget. And the plan is to fund up to 30 proposals. That's a heavy investment by the School of Medicine in this funding initiative. This is real money, as you know. And to some extent, when Steve and I and others were brainstorming on this program, we wondered about trying to format it or base it upon the format of a couple of existing NIH formats for proposals. There's the NIH Small Grant Program, the R03 program, and probably better known to our faculty is the R21 or Exploratory Developmental Research Grant Award Program. Over on the left, the R03, again, that's 100K over 2 years. So this is the same size, this internal funding initiative as an NIH funding opportunity, the R03 program, Triumph. And it's like the R03 program, as it said, there's no preliminary data required to submit an R03, but it's certainly heavily in the interest and welcomed for investigators who have that, and many of them do. But the goals of the small grant program is for pilot or feasibility studies, developing research methodology or new research technology. The R21 mechanism, as many on this call know, is more involved. It has the same scope and time, 2 years, but it has more money total. It's $275K over the 2 years. Again, no preliminary data are required, but are strongly encouraged if available. And R21s are geared as exploratory type proposals that break new ground and take projects in new directions. And they're distinct from the R01, which is a more involved pathway. And so we think that the Triumph program kind of fits in this spectrum of grant, 2 years of funding. We wish we had the $275K to give to 30 projects, but there's limitations. And so 100K for 30 projects is a major investment. And we think that the scope of the science should be in the range of these types of proposals, R03s, R21s. This is the format that we're requiring for the proposals. And this is largely based on the format with some minor modifications to make it a little simpler. Of the R03s and R21s, and this graph is actually just taken from an NIH website. There's a face page that people will have to submit. It's just a form that's already been created. It'll be available on a special web page that's being created related to the Triumph program. It just has demographic information, the investigators, the title of the proposal, some other important issue, and also gives people an opportunity to list investigators on our campus who might have conflict of interest from collaborating or reviewing the proposal. For example, if you're already collaborating with someone, well, then we can't ask that person to review your proposal. There needs to be a summary or abstract, a one-page specific aims, and then we're talking about 6 pages of text here. So that's a significant amount. But it's doable, and that is the same page length for an R03 or R21 proposal. And we're asking that it's be broken down like an R01 or R03 or R21 into significance, innovation, and approach sections. And then the usual, you need a bibliography section, and we want investigators in this mechanism to include their biosketch using the NIH format. And we'll provide some, many are already familiar with that using the NIH biosketch format. For those that aren't, I have a couple of quick slides that'll tell you a couple of things about that. We want some budgetary information, a budget justification, and then if you need any support letters from a collaborator or from your chair documenting that you'll be given the protected time to work on this proposal. I want to mention that the timing of something that our School of Medicine Research Council has come up with, a summer grant writing workshop, actually without any foreplanning, really dovetails well with the Triumph initiative. On August 6th, there's going to be a workshop on grant writing. It's from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. I want to give kudos to Dana Duran from our Department of Orthopedics and other members of the Research Council for coming up with this idea, developing the format, which is going to focus on NIH proposals. And they are going to specifically cover topics like writing an effective NIH biosketch, the importance of an effective specific aims page, and then some just an important comment about the guts of the grant, the research strategy. So I encourage those who can to join this workshop, and my understanding is to be recorded for viewing later by those who cannot attend because of conflicts on August 6th. Just timeline, as Steve mentioned, there will be a letter of intent process. That's mainly just demographic information, title, who's on the grant. That will be due September 4th, not that far off. And the purpose of that is just so that we can plan on obtaining reviewers. We needed some heads up on how many grants we're going to get, so that we can plan recruiting reviewers, because that's a bit of work, and we need the letters of intent will help us with that. Everyone who submits a letter of intent will be allowed to submit the full proposal. The deadline for that is October 20th. And then we have to get to work across the campus and in the School of Medicine to review those proposals so that we're ready to fund them beginning at the end, towards the end of this year. And I just want to emphasize that those deadlines for submitting the proposals, we will enforce them. And I'm speaking as one who submitted a grant 15 minutes late to the ICTS a couple of years ago, and it wasn't accepted. It was rejected because I submitted it 15 minutes late. So we really need people to make those deadlines for when we submit them. We want people to be bold and creative, to seek collaborations in writing these proposals, but at the same time, we want them to maintain an appropriate scope. It's important to demonstrate the feasibility of the proposed work. We don't want people cramming a 5-year project on the size and scale of an R01 into a 2-year award. And of course, it can't overlap with a project that is already funded, and we'll have some of the usual ways of other support and so forth to assess for that. As a side bonus, again, I mentioned that one of the things we want from this is for people to eventually, from the seed funding, the funded teams to submit grants down the road as a result of this pilot funding, this investment in the School of Medicine and their research. And one maybe early low-hanging fruit return on investment could be that if you've already written what is effectively an R01 or R20 or R03 rather, or R21, there are deadlines in October and February for those types of grants. And if a team says, you know what, we just submitted our project to Triumph, we're going to basically submit the same thing now to the NIH, and if it gets funded, we will, of course, then the Triumph funding would have to stop, but we would give that team a bonus of $10,000 of funding to use for discretionary research objectives. And keep in mind that if you get the funding towards the end of 2020 and you submit a proposal in February of 2021, you may not find out for months whether it's funded or not. And all during that period of time, you will be receiving funding from the Triumph initiative. So there will be considerable investment in an award that is funded by NIH beyond that $10,000. But we really encourage people, if you've gone through the work of submitting this, to consider submitting the R03, R21. Not all institutes at the NIH accept those in unsolicited format, but many do, and that can be discussed later for those that need more information about that. Just want to make a quick mention about budget. I'm almost through here. As Steve mentioned, we want to, what's different about Triumph compared to things like people who might have applied for Mizzou Advantage type grants or other seed funding on our campus, is that we're allowing salary and benefits of the faculty members to be included in the budget of the proposal. So we're requiring a minimum of 5% effort for the principal investigator, and we're requiring that the department chair provide a brief letter just stating that the faculty member will receive that protected time if the grant is funded. We're allowing cost-sharing decisions to be made by the department. The PI must be a member of the School of Medicine department, where the primary appointment of the PI is in a department in the School of Medicine. But we're allowing co-investigators to be from not only the School of Medicine, but other departments, other schools even on our campus. Although we are limiting the support of salary for non-School of Medicine co-investigators to 2.5% maximum effort, which really for a grant of this scale is appropriate amount of effort. And the total amount of the budget that can be devoted to faculty salaries is 50%. So if you're getting $50,000 in year one, up to $25,000 can go to support the salaries and benefits of the PI and co-investigators. Other issues about the budget are available in the funding announcement that has been already sent out to faculty by email and will be available on the website devoted to Triumph. Submission process, again, we're having letters of intent and full proposals. We're going to do that by REDCap. This is something that Debbie Taylor is helping to develop rather. And for those of you who haven't used REDCap, if you go to the School of Medicine website and the Show Me portal and scroll down to REDCap, you can see here, you can launch it. You just log in and you're in REDCap. And this will walk you through the process of submitting your proposal. And we like this format. I think this will maybe be a springboard for future things as far as opposed to submitting everything by email to Debbie as an example. Now, let me close that out. So again, the letters of intent and the full proposals will be submitted via REDCap, and the full proposals will be assembled by the team, by the PI, into a single PDF file. The review process, we're going to get internal reviewers across our school and campus. That's challenging, but doable. Depending on we will formulate a study section. We might even consider more than one study section, depending on the spectrum of proposals and the number of proposals. Applicants will receive a written critique from at least 2 reviewers. We'll use the NIH scoring system. We'll use the NIH criteria for assessing proposals, significance, investigators, innovation, approach, and environment. And we'll generate from those criteria an impact score that the applicant will receive. And over on the right, you see the just the scoring system. So that's what I had to say about Triumph. And once again, just very appreciative to Dr. Zweig and the Dean's Office leadership for making this program available. I think there's a lot of, I'd also like to thank some of the few department chairs and other leaders in our school that helped a little bit in formulating the funding announcement. Just like to open up the rest of our town hall just for questions or comments that people might have. I'm going to unshare my screen and I'll look, on the chat, you can raise your hand or I'd like to just, as long as we don't have too many people speaking at once, if people do have questions, just please identify yourself, and if you have a comment or question, we welcome them. I don't know if any of the individuals who are just Dana Duran or others involved in the School of Medicine or the Research Council grant writing workshop, or any of you on the call?
Yes, I'm here. This is Dana.
Oh, there's Dana. May I ask you, Dana, just to make any comments quickly about that, please, just while we're asking if anybody else has questions, because I think this all originated with your council.
Yeah. Sure, thank you. Yeah, we're looking forward to not only the workshop, but also to the Triumph mechanism. I think this is really, really a great opportunity for our School of Medicine to foster some internal funded projects. The workshop actually really does dovetail well with this, and the timing couldn't be more perfect. So we're going to have 4 main aspects covered, and in addition to the 3 that Dr. Fay mentioned, we're also going to talk about the PI and program officer interactions, because that relationship is really, really important. but anybody who registers for the workshop, feel free to upload your specific aims as you're looking forward not only to NIH, but to the Triumph. And we can have some lively conversation on that as well. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, thanks, Dana. And thanks again for your making this whole, you and other members of the Research Council for making this happen. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. I do have a question on the Triumph, if I may.
Please.
Are there restrictions on, I know there's a restriction, the PI has to be based in the School of Medicine. What about for multi-PI?
Yeah.
They can be from other schools in the university. Can we help promote some of our trainees in this? And could they be investigators? I'm thinking mainly like postdocs. Could we get them involved with a faculty as PI?
Well, I'm going to make some comments, and I would please ask Steve to weigh in if he has any other thoughts. I think that we bantered this idea about, and I think in the end of the day, to request that the PI be a member whose primary appointment in the School of Medicine is a reasonable decision. Yes, we are allowing multi-PI proposals. And if, for example, there are 2 multi-PIs, then each would have to devote at least 2.5% effort. But we are, since they are PIs, requesting that both of them would have a primary appointment in the School of Medicine. If you have a strong collaborator in arts and science or something, that's great. We welcome the investment of that person, and that person could devote 2.5% effort as a co-investigator and a valued member of the team, but not as PI. Regarding trainees, they can be funded on the grant, their effort. Haven't really thought too much about whether they could be an investigator, although I have to say, Dana, my initial thought on that might be, would probably be no. As an example, for the R21 mechanism, I know that trainees are not allowed to apply for that. And so it would probably be more appropriate that at this point we're asking those be faculty members, but we're welcoming PIs, their postdocs, trainees to be on the grant, including for their salary. That amount of money is not in that 50% cap. That's faculty salary is that cap. But salaries of trainees and postdocs could be on the award. I know that can eat up grants fast, but some of their effort could be on the budget.
Great, thank you.
Bill, when does funding start for these projects?
Well, we have, Rick, put down as December 1st. I don't know if that gets into any budget, it's calendar year or fiscal year issues, but we really felt that we wanted to get this going. And yes, that's an ambitious timeline, but we felt that investment in the faculty and getting our translational research, well, it's already going, and but I think that to assist it, we felt that some urgency and timing, and made that decision, and Steve was pushing in a good way to say, let's get this thing going. So that is the timeline.
That is fast.
Funding December 1st. Yeah, that would be 2 months between receipt of proposals and initiation of funding, which I realize is ambitious.
So that's good. A couple other questions. IRB.
Yes.
So what the big problem I've always gotten into with pilot grant programs is you award it and then they're waiting 6 to 12 months to get IRB approval.
Yeah.
Doesn't even start. So how are you going to try to make sure that they have IRB? One way is to have them have their consent and their stuff ready to go when they submit the grant to you.
Yes. I did create a face page for the grant. I might share it if I can pull it up while I'm talking, but we do ask people to, in the face page, address, do you have IRB or animal use committee or other biosafety special agent issues that need to be addressed. We're not asking that they provide that with the proposal. We're kind of treating it like just-in-time documents. but I get your point. I mean, then that puts pressure on the investigator to either get that going, early, and there is a risk that if someone waits till they get their sort of notice of award or get their score back and look like they're going to get funded, kind of thing, to then and if they only then start their human IRB stuff, you're right, there could be delays in getting things started. So that, I don't know, do you have any well, we're encouraging people to get going on that early. We weren't requiring that they have IRB approval at the time of submission.
Well, what you could do is,
that's kind of where we are. I welcome suggestions.
Yeah, so what you could do is, if you're really thinking about being able to turn the switch on by December 1 or January 1, you could say notices of award will be made by December 1, January 1, but then say that they would not start getting the funding until they were IRB approved, or they would only get half the funding until there's something like that.
Yes.
Don't give it all to them before they get IRB approval.
Yes. No, that's a key point. And I would say we're probably planning on not to doing that, and that puts the pressure on the investigator to get that ready. But you're right. That's a very important point, and that
because if someone can never get IRB approval, or they just don't, then you're not going to give them the money. Then why? Then sometimes what I've been in the position of, then you have to get the money back from them and give it to someone else. But this is such a big program you're initiating with so many people you're going to fund. Things like that could happen. Yes,
I agree with you, and that will require more thought. I do think, though, that it's going to be really, to some extent, the pressure is going to be on the investigator to really think ahead and plan on those issues, so that they're not left not able to proceed because they're awaiting approval.
And then the last question I have, and have you thought about progress reports, and at what time? And then and then have you thought about a research day in a year to have all these folks present?
We are, I was always careful what you ask for. I was saying, who's going to review all these things? So I guess all and others will be in the loop. But yes, we are requiring, and it's in the funding announcement, that a interim progress report will be due at end of year 1 and a final progress report at end of year 2. And I really like the idea about some sort of symposium or process. I think that's an awesome idea. We should definitely, maybe we could even have it in the Next Gen building.
I was going to say, we'll put on the Precision Health Research Day for your awardees.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to raise my hand here in this forum, but this is Dana again. I agree with Dr. Barron. It's really important. That IRB piece is super important for these. And you're right, if there's such a quick turnaround from when you hear about funding and then your first day starts, very, very soon after that, I don't think it's unreasonable to say by the time you submit on October 2nd, you have to have IRB in process, so that at least it's being reviewed and you have a pretty good assurance that it's gonna pan out, right? If they start the IRB when they hear about their funding, depending on how involved the project is, it could be months before they get it, and then Dr. Barron's right, half the money will be gone, right? Or half their time will be gone for that year. So I don't think it's unreasonable to say you must have IRB in process by the time you submit on October 2nd. If they're putting in LOIs in September, they're going to have a good sense of what they need to do.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. This is the required face page for the proposal, and you're seeing where we are requiring that people, for example, say that they're using human subject. So at least when we get the letters, we can create a list of individuals or teams that have these, regulatory requirements that they have to complete before they could receive funding. And then we'll have to, follow up with them and get them to stay on it. And I've been there myself when you get that rush of hearing you got a fundable score, but then you got to, sometimes really work hard on getting your animal stuff or human stuff approved. But so at least we can flag people at the time of submitting their letter of intent, and then work with them and stay on them, so to speak, to make sure that they're getting these things submitted and in process, and that they understand they won't get the award if they don't have approval for these or won't be activated. But yeah, this is an issue on a tight timeline that will be a challenge. I appreciate that being brought up.
Bill, Steve Siegel here. I have a question.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, I thought I would do this too, just for fun. For people who don't know, my whole life I ride motorcycles. Triumph is a very classic British bike, so I thought I would put on my T-shirt for this.
We're putting you in charge of the program now.
Well, I'll champion the motorcycle. My question is for reviewers. If somebody submits a letter of intent and proposal, it would seem to be a conflict of interest if they're going to be on one of their study sections. So we might be excluding quite a lot of qualified people from reviewing.
I know.
That because they're submitting proposals. I'm just concerned about getting enough reviewers that are qualified.
I am too. And that's, we by the way, people may be wondering when the heck are they going to announce these COVID-19 pilot grants? And we will be announcing that this week. We've made our funding decisions. But that was a challenge. We got 35 of those proposals, and we had to just to find reviewers who were unconflicted was a challenge. But I agree with you. It's going to be a challenge, Steve. We're automatically not going to ask someone from the same department to be a reviewer. We're going to ask applicants in the face page to try to denote the, Melissa, thank you, to denote who their conflicts are, because to just facilitate coming up with the reviewers. I think we have to encourage reviewers to, heck, I mean, in a real study section, you wouldn't review anything that was from your same institution. And yet we're asking all our reviewers to be in the same institution by and large. So we're going to have to ask people to be kind of push their comfort zone a little bit and be willing to review a proposal of someone they may have, written a paper with 10 years ago, or had a prior collaboration or something, but I still think we can get fair reviews. One of the side benefits of allowing faculty members from other colleges to receive funding through this mechanism is that it gives us a little bit more leeway to ask for faculty members from those colleges to serve as reviewers. So we're looking at a more campus-wide pool, we hope, than just the School of Medicine. But I'd welcome suggestions or thoughts that you have. It is a challenge that I'm concerned about. What are your thoughts, Steve?
So it's not unprecedented. I forget. There's 3 or 4 different internal study sections that I've served on for the university.
Yeah.
And being objective and evaluating the science is just the bottom line. And it works. There's a number of programs in the last 15 years I've had experience with now that work with people reviewing internally. They're not for this kind of money, but professional integrity. If there is a conflict of interest, if you know the person, then you disqualify yourself. If you think you can, and I've had that. And so they've given me another proposal and I said, yes, I can review this one objectively. I have no involvement, and it works. So, we've done that before. The other thing you mentioned is that there may be more than one study section.
Yes.
So if people are apportioned appropriately, then that might also help alleviate that. And you just ask people to disqualify themselves if they think there is a conflict.
Yeah, people always like to play that game of, they'll review the study section roster and try to guess who reviewed their grant. We're just actually not going to advertise that, who are serving on the study sections. It's not like a state secret or anything, but we're not going to publish, here's the reviewers. So that might allow another just minor level of comfort of people to, maybe people just won't know who reviewed their grants, or even, being able to review a list of the study section members.
I really also wanted to comment, I really like the idea of getting written critiques back. on every
Yeah.
grant, because that's going to be really helpful for people, whatever happens from this step. So.
Yes. Melissa had a question. Melissa?
Hi there. Yes, this is Melissa Lewis. I have a couple
Oh,
of
hey, Melissa.
questions. Hi. The first one, I think you covered this, but I just wanted to clarify. For the COIs, did you say they must be within our system, or what are the, or they could be
Well,
from any university?
You could have a co-investigator. I don't know where you're calling from, Melissa. You're not in Oklahoma right now, are you?
I sure am.
All right. So, but we are allowing investigators outside of the institution, but we're not really planning on issuing any subcontracts, you know, so to fund that effort. Does that answer your question? We don't
Yes,
really
yes.
have a vehicle to do that without getting our sponsored programs office, and we're just probably not going to go that far.
Sure, sure. I just saw
But
that
they
there
could
was
be
the,
involved conceptually, and they could be co-investigators, and maybe some, you know, there could be some ways that it could be to benefit, you know, I don't know, maybe you're doing something here or using some resource here that they somehow tap into with you, but we're not issuing funding in terms of support the salary or issuing monies to another institution to support work done there through this funding mechanism.
okay, that helps. And then my second question is there a good mechanism or who is the appropriate person to discuss your proposal with before the letter to just
That's
make
a good
sure
point.
it's a good
you know,
fit?
kind of like who's the program officer or equivalence.
Right.
I think, you know, I actually prepared a little backup slide about that, but I'm not going to show it. But I just think, you know, I want to emphasize that translational research and precision health, we're really trying to cast a very broad net here. But I think if you have specific questions about your proposal, and you know, I would be happy to talk. Your professional colleagues, your department chair. I'm sure that, you know, the 6 pillars of the Next Gen Precision Health Institute. We have some, you know, very talented faculty research leads who might be willing to give you their advice. People, you know, like Carrie McDonald is an example. Tom Spencer, other faculty research leads. You know, is this translational? Do you think this fits within the broad spectrum of translational research, precision health? So I think that those are the types of people that I would go to, and I'm welcome to have any discussions about it. Because yeah, we've all been there. Is my work right for this funding mechanism or not?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Lik Singh had questions. Dr. Reneker.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple questions, but I'll ask just one at this point. And if I have questions later, maybe I'll just email or call you later. So since this has a written critique, send it to the applicants, would you let the PI revise and resubmit, or this is one-time thing?
That's a good question. Well, we're not really equipped. We're planning to fund up to 30 meritorious proposals. It sort of depends the number of, you know, I'm pretty darn confident we're gonna get well more than 30. If there was, we want to fund, you know, highly meritorious proposals, but we're not, and who knows what the next cycle, the next year will bring. Hopefully, maybe you're kind of putting a plant here to kind of, for the dean and other leaders to keep this program going long-term and with annual cycles. But we're not planning you know, another round in 6 months or something. If there were another round, it most likely would be on an annual cycle.
Okay. Because the ITCS, sometimes they have some question and they send the question to the PI and say, you know, if you could just answer it. Because some PI in our department actually answered and got funded.
Oh, really?
It's not a formal resubmission, but it's just something need to be clarified.
Mm-hmm.
Not, it didn't happen to me, but happened to a young investigator in our department for ICTS grant.
Yeah. Well, that may be a possibility. I think to some extent, we're trying to, it's just like a real grant, you usually are not contacted by the funding agency, until you've gotten your critiques and things, they don't. So, but no, we're not planning an annual, or a 4-month cycle and resubmissions at this point.
Yeah, well, the whole process very encouraging.
Yeah,
Very
I couldn't
encouraging.
agree more. Did you have another question, Lixing, from our Department of Ophthalmology?
Well, the question you mentioned about if somebody submit the proposal to NIH and then if they get funded, then this one will stop, but still get some kind of a award, 10,000,
Yeah.
How about if somebody already have a grant in the pipeline, under review for NIH, and then they just, not me, okay, and then they just say, oh, I'm just gonna turn into this one, and what about that?
Well, we don't really think that's responsive to this initiative. We really want this to be new proposals trying to move forward. And if someone had an R01 pending or something, it's already under review and then got funded, when we're not going to say, well, they might get that bonus or something. It's really if someone submits to this and then subsequently for this program by the deadline, and then subsequently for the October or February deadline, and after that submits an R21 or R03, and if it were funded, then that's how they could get that additional funding.
Okay. One more question after that. I'll leave chance for other people to ask question. I just finished a 3-year term on the Research Council review committee, and the question come up for the discussion quite often is if some young investigators still have quite a bit of time left for a startup fund. They still have a startup fund left for 2 or 3 years. Do they? What do you think about they applied and then should they get additional funding, even though they already have, like, for example, still have a $200,000 or $300,000 left on their startup fund?
Yeah, this is a new funding initiative that is open to all faculty members, including those who have existing startup accounts. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because the debate at the Research Council is if they already given a startup fund for them to, take off and apply for external funding.
Yeah.
And whether they should get additional.
Well, I think that's a valid point, but I think at this point we are opening this up to all faculty, including those who have startup funding. But they have to write a new proposal for this initiative.
Yeah.
But thank you, Lixing. Dr. Joshi had a question.
Hey, Dr. Feng, yes. So I wanted to know if School of Medicine faculty submits a PI grant, can the faculty at the same time be a co-PI on somebody else's grant?
Yeah.
And it could be unrelated developments that are proposed, and if both those get approved or are going to get funded, is that going to impact the funding in that case?
Well, for starters, and I meant to mention it but forgot, so thank you for reminding me, we are only allowing people to serve as one PI for one grant, right? And by the way, if you're a multi-PI, then that's your PI.
But
you can't be a PI on, but I get it.
Yeah, and
but if someone's a PI on one grant, can they be a co-I on someone else's grant? Yes, we don't have a restriction against that.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, thank you.
I want to leave time for any closing comments by Dr. Zweig if he has any, but I'm also just scanning the. I want to just scan for any other questions. And like any initiative, this is something new, as Steve pointed out, and you know, speaking for the entire dean's office, we welcome feedback or suggestions. And like any initiative, this is version 1.0, and you know, maybe not going to be perfect in the first year, but we welcome advice and feedback to try to continually improve, and can take that in future, you know, hopefully future Triumph 2 or something. We'll have to see, but I welcome any feedback or suggestions, criticisms that people might have for this program.
Bill, do you have time for one more question?
Of course, Dr. Kapp, Julie,
Hi.
a leader in translational and research on our campus.
Yes. Thank you for doing this for the School of Medicine. It's very generous. So I have a question and a comment. On the translational spectrum, I fall on the T4N toward the community, and you had mentioned that subcontracts weren't allowed, and I wasn't clear if that meant that you can't also include a community-based program, in which case you would need a subcontract for that.
Well, we're not planning to get in the business of cutting checks to people outside of MU.
Okay.
I mean, it's just the feasibility of the program and the scope, and I actually don't know what was the practice for Mizzou Advantage or for Research Board if they did that. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, but I don't know. Do you know? But we're not planning on doing that. But I still think that they can benefit from being involved in the program scientifically, and you know.
They could. It would certainly limit your applications on that T4N because it does involve people's time and additional effort for that program. So it would be appropriate to give them the money for that.
Maybe if offline or follow-up email or something, if you had some more information about that I would appreciate it. And you know, we want to try to do the best thing that promotes good research. That's our objective here, not to be restrictive. You know.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So I'm willing to look at things and you know, try to give you a balanced feedback after, you know, consulting with the appropriate people.
Thank you. And then just a quick comment. I was on the phone with a program officer this morning from NIDDK about some of my own work, and she reminded me that R21s are going away. There might be a few that are left out there that aren't expired yet, and that
I actually didn't know that.
R03s are going to be only available for K awardees. And so the bonus is very generous and obviously secondary to the purpose of this, which is getting the grant in and getting the bigger funding. But for folks who are writing toward NIH, that might limit their ability to to NIDDK specifically.
Yeah, it's just not many. Oh, yeah, I don't know if you were talking about just a specific institute when you were making your
right,
comment.
NIDDK.
I see. Yeah, okay. Right, that is the limitation. We realize that it's not all institutes, so but it's not taking anything away from anyone. It's just making it available for those that it fits their research. I think with it, we're ending down towards the end of our time, and if I either just speaking on behalf of Dr. Zweig or Steve, I wonder if you might just want to. This idea started with you. I would ask you if you might just bring us to a close, please.
Well, thanks, Bill, and thanks for all the input from everyone. And I know if you have more questions, as there always seem to be with things like this, that Bill and I will do our best to try to answer them. I think this is, I hope that everybody can look at this as a positive thing. This is an investment in our future. This is a way to help to perhaps address some of the losses that we've had with regard to state funding and campus funding. And we really think that this is an important step to us really making our meaningful and rightful contribution to the research future of our campus. So thanks everybody for coming on and listening in and asking questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie and Bill.